Howdy, this is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. All right, here we are on July the 20th in the year of our Lord 2025, and I've got some really good information for you tonight. Let's go ahead and click over here, Murtech on Rumble. And this is the video that you're watching. It says upcoming, but as you well know, you are watching it. Okay, my episode 1629. Let's get into this. Hi, Debbie BS. Thank you for joining me. Let me close that out and slide down here and open the description box. All righty. Okay, we have information from Andrew Klavan, Mark Levin, Doug in Exile, and the Why Files. All right, but before we get into that, I do need to give some shout outs. I have a lot of shout outs tonight. Betty Boop 69 just started following my channel. Joe Spag, like in spaghetti, I guess, just started following my channel. Wave Nick Kirk just started following my channel. Bob Jr. 1975 just started following my channel. eGrab4 just started following my channel. And Erwin W77 just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. I'll tell you what, I think that when I reached my goals on Rumble, as far as chats and hours produced videos and my premium videos, things have kind of picked up for me here. Fisher C45 reposted my video from my daily news update. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1624 and 1625 and 1626 and 1627, and that has probably helped too drum up some more interest in my videos and information, and that's great because more people that watch my information, my videos, the more people that are going to be aware of what's actually going on. Birdie71, Sheleptin, and Debbie BS commented on my episode 1628. Debbie BS commented on my episode my extra 413A and 413B. Micah Dura 21 and Debbie BS commented on my extra 413C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 414A. Kate Hobbs and Debbie BS commented on my extra 414B. And Debbie BS commented on my extra 414C. So thank you very much for your comments, folks. I really enjoy reading your feedback, and I appreciate your support. So let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Boom. There it is. There it is. Okay, and I have one of those thumbs up things right down here. I've got two of them already, so if you can go ahead and give me a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, comment of the day from Kate Hobbs, as I mentioned earlier, from my extra 414B. Now, this video here was a video about the LA, the person in LA that ran his car through a crowd of people. And very interestingly, they barely mentioned about the crowd of people. I think it was 30 or more that were injured and possibly killed. They barely talked about that. What they talked about is, I guess, somebody had a gun and shot this guy. Okay? Which kind of makes sense. He's driving his car through a crowd of people. You know, I would be tempted if I had a gun to shoot him to get him to stop as well. But that's what they talked about, is the guy that shot him, and they're investigating to try to find out who it is. And Kate Hobbs said the driver was killing people. Oh my gosh. You know, they're talking about how horrible it was that somebody stopped this guy from running over people with his car. That's Los Angeles for you. Pretty amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Kate Hobbs, for that comment. I appreciate it. Okay, so this is the video here, and this is her comment on this. It's this is my extra 414B. If you want to check out my videos and listen to this, it's remarkable. Okay, let's get back here. And I mentioned how Debbie BS and Fisher C45 have reposted my videos. I'm going to click on this for Debbie BS reposts. And these are the videos that she's reposted for me. Thank you, Debbie BS. Right here. These are the videos. Okay, come back here and let's click on Fisher's 45 reposts. And here's the repost that he's had. There's my videos there. Thank you very much, Fisher C45, if you're watching. Okay, so getting back here, let's get into this. Andrew Klavan, I'm going to give his monologue, let you hear his monologue, then we're going to move up to about the 7-minute and 18-second mark. So let's get started with this.
Yeah.
Oh, let me move it back to the beginning so you can catch that.
Knowledgeable sources say the Trump administration is being torn to pieces by its mishandling of the Epstein scandal. Although in its first 6 months, the administration has scored a string of successes so long you couldn't read it in the time it took to achieve it, knowledgeable sources on both the left and the right are saying that the poor handling of the Epstein story should erase all those successes so that commentators can continue to scream in outraged tones with the veins in their necks bulging out while their audience clenches their fists and shouts, "Yeah," in gravelly voices, even though they're listening to complete crap. Although Trump has tried to argue that all is well in an administration that has closed the border, helped neutralize Iran, and operated the government at a surplus for the first time in over 20 years, knowledgeable sources report that, in fact, everything is coming apart at the seams, if indeed everything has seams, which remains just one more open question in the Epstein case. One knowledgeable source, for instance, says that FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino recently clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi, vowing that he would unleash a vengeance more horrible than her wildest imagination if Bondi did not release more information about Epstein, or at least stop wearing those pantsuits that keep reminding him of Hillary Clinton, which is just making him crazy in the head. The knowledgeable source says Bongino then put Bondi in a chokehold, and the two rolled around on the floor in a cloud of dust with various articles of jewelry and clothing flying out of it until a stalemate was declared, and they moved on to the next agenda item, which was a potato sack race. Another knowledgeable source reports that FBI Director Kash Patel's girlfriend obviously must have enlisted him in the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, because how else can anyone explain why a woman that beautiful would go out with a guy who looks like Kash Patel, especially when the knowledgeable source was sitting right there in plain sight and would have gladly worked for Mossad or anyone else if Kash Patel's girlfriend, or just some woman who looked like Kash Patel's girlfriend, had simply leaned in close to the knowledgeable source and murmured in a sultry voice, "Come and work for Mossad." Still, another knowledgeable source reports that a voice coming from somewhere within the administration has spoken to him through the fillings in his teeth and revealed that the end of days has come. Or possibly a friend of Dave's has come. It was hard for the knowledgeable source to hear because the reception in his fillings has been very spotty lately, despite the fact that he's been wearing rabbit ear antennae on top of his tinfoil hat. In any case, if it turns out that it's not the end of days that has come, but a friend of Dave's, then no action is currently required, except maybe putting out some snacks and a pot of chamomile tea, which Dave's friend particularly enjoys. Another knowledgeable source has revealed exclusively to Tucker Carlson that the Epstein cover-up is all the fault of the Jews. Although Tucker's knowledgeable source loaned his rabbit ear antennae to the end of days knowledgeable source, so the cover-up may have actually been all the fault of the Jews, since no one's seen OJ around recently, and who knows what he's been getting up to. In any case, Tucker gave an impassioned speech to TPUSA, saying, quote, "Why should it be forbidden to blame it all on Israel? Somehow Israel is the only country on earth you're not allowed to blame for anything. That's why you have all these Israelis walking around happy-go-lucky without a care in the world. It's because no one ever blames them for anything. Well, I'm not afraid of being called anti-Semitic. After all, that's where the big money is," unquote. Trump supporters are hoping the president will see to it that more information is released soon, because knowledgeable sources are going to continue to spread the inside story about the Epstein scandal until someone finally tells us the freaking truth. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad he explained all that to us because I was really confused until, he was able to get that out for us. Whew. Let's get up here to the 7 minute and 18-second mark. He's going to do some advertisement here and talk about his book. Oh, here we go.
Please tell me how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan.
Future of Culture.
Chapter 1, the freedom culture. So I want to return to a subject I've hit on before, but I think it's the most important subject that's facing us right now, much more important than what they're doing in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else, which is the question of who we, you and I, are going to be in what is an epoch of transition, the biggest political transition of my lifetime, because it's essentially the transition out of the baby boom universe that has dominated politics and culture for as long as I've been alive. I think it's about 5 years since I told Jeremy Boring, the founder and God King of the Daily Wire, that I no longer wanted to do my show 4 days a week, but only one. And I said this because Jeremy was great about it. The minute I said to him, I'm not having fun anymore, he said, well, if you're not having fun, don't do it. And the reason I wasn't having fun, well, a couple of reasons. One was writing these incredibly brilliant satires 4 days a week was simply too hard. It was just the hardest thing I'd ever done. And it was killing me. And I wanted to concentrate on my own writing and my fiction and everything. But chiefly, the big problem I had is that I had to show up 4 days a week with an opinion on every little thing that was happening, because you have to have something to talk about. And I don't really have an opinion on every little thing that is happening. I only have one political opinion, which is that men should be free. Like God, I believe that freedom comes before virtue, because unless you freely choose virtue, it isn't virtue at all. So you have to be free in order to be virtuous. So God and I are on the exact same page with this, which is always a good place to be. And when I first started doing political commentary, which came out of the blue, it was nothing I expected to be doing at all, I thought that my commitment to freedom meant I was an individualist, because freedom is an individual thing. In order to be free, you, the individual, has to be free. But I came to understand, and I remember it was a long time ago, because right after I started the show, I think I was talking to Spencer in Oxford. We were taking a walk, or maybe right before I started the show. I said, the individualism is not going to make it, because any individual can be completely free as long as he's willing to be crucified. If you're willing to be crucified, you can say anything you want. And I've always felt totally free, because I'm not in a society that normally crucifies people for talking normally. And I was willing to lose my Hollywood career and audience levels and good reviews. I was willing to lose a lot of things in order to say what I thought was the truth. So I always felt like I was a free man. I could do whatever I wanted as long as I was willing to pay the price, which I was. But I quickly realized that for a society to be free is much more complicated, because a society requires a system and a culture and behaviors that cherish and encourage and uphold both freedom and virtue, because you want to be free so you can choose virtue, but you have to be virtuous in order to be free. If you're not virtuous, chaos comes and you need to have a heavy hand in the government. Now, we had a culture pretty much like that when I was a younger man. When I was a young guy, the culture of America was a culture of freedom. Was it flawed? Did we do bad things? Yes. I always get so bored with saying that, because that's just life. Every country, every culture is like that. But we did have a culture where people thought, they wanted to hear what other people had to say. They weren't silencing people. They understood that, people would disagree and all these things. And the reason I started opening my big mouth at all was because I felt we were losing that freedom culture. So I joined what turned out to be a fight to crush the growing unfree culture that had taken over the high ground in all of our, colleges and our outlets of entertainment, our outlets of news. It just monopolized the world of information. And it was a culture which was marked by an obsession with the fantasy of equality. Equality is always a fantasy. There's no such thing as equality, but it kept taking different shapes: socialism, feminism, sexual liberation, so-called anti-racism, and so on. And it was this culture that purportedly was going to bring equality, but really was just going to bring oppression. It was an anti-freedom culture, because you can't be both free and equal, right? If you're free, then some people are going to excel, some people won't, some people are going to work hard, some people won't, other people are going to fall behind. freedom and equality are actually in tension with one another. And I believe in freedom. I don't believe in equality because I don't believe it exists. The only way for me to be equal with somebody who's better than me is to bring him down, because I can't rise to his level. I can't play basketball like LeBron James. So to be equal, LeBron James has to shoot fewer baskets so I can keep up with him, a lot fewer. So as I'm speaking right now, this fight that I joined against the anti-freedom culture has been won. I mean, dramatically, it's been won. Trump basically became the leader of that movement. The second time he won and had time to understand what had happened to him in D.C. the first time, and had time to assemble a good cabinet and a good cast of characters and to learn what he wanted to do and to think about what he wanted to do, he has been scoring one insane victory after another, and many of them have been in the cultural sphere, and in some sense, all of them have been in the cultural sphere. But just yesterday, I think it was, the Senate voted to defund NPR and PBS, and PBS. Conservatives have been trying to do that for years. There is no reason these two leftist propaganda factories that have been hiding behind Big Bird's feathers long after Big Bird went off and became a capitalist at HBO, they've been saying, you can't get rid of PBS. That's where Big Bird lives. They're just lying about it. Catherine Maher, the super woke CEO of NPR, was on CNN and did the usual leftist shuck and jive, which is, well, the people say we're biased, or they say we're biased, but we're not biased at all. Just listen to this brief quote. It's amazing.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
So Senator John Kennedy, the wit of the Senate, got up in the Senate chamber and read headlines from NPR calling birds racist and highways racist and suggesting Trump was in Putin's pocket. But, you don't even have to do that, which was very funny, but you don't even have to do that because I would like to see one single pro-Trump commentator or story on either PBS or NPR. And the question is not, do they have a right to broadcast that stuff? Of course they do. The question is, why are we paying for it? Why are we giving them anything? And, the interesting thing about both NPR and PBS is they both have excellent cultural content, which I would like to see continue. And I don't understand why they can't correct this bias and I do understand it, but, I would like to see them correct that bias and continue to do that great cultural content, but do it for the whole country, and let the whole country join in on their news stories by reporting fairly instead of what they are reporting, which is not just unfairly, but it's complete nonsense. Then last night, I believe it was, Stephen Colbert's late night show was canceled. CBS says it's completely for financial reasons, and I'm shocked because I don't know where they're going to go to find anyone that smug and unfunny who can pander to one political party while alienating and angering the rest of the country by depriving them of network entertainment. Here's Colbert that's a lot of talents to have in one man. Here's Colbert announcing the news.
Before we start the show, I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away. And I do want to say that the folks at CBS have been great partners. I'm so grateful to the Tiffany Network for giving me this chair and this beautiful theater to call home. And of course, I'm grateful to you, the audience.
Just what he did was a bad thing. And I love the Democrats. Elizabeth Warren says, America deserves to know if his show was canceled for political reasons. Okay, America. Yes, it was. Why shouldn't a network on airwaves owned by the public, the whole public, run by the FCC, fire a guy for dividing the country by only making jokes about one side, so you can't laugh at yourself because you're always getting punched in the face. So nobody, I'm sure, was watching, and I'm sure that's why. Colbert, a lot of people are suggesting, had to do with the fact that Trump sued them, that Paramount is trying to meld companies with, what is it called, Skyhorse, is that the name of the company they want to meld with, and they need government approval, and maybe it's all because of that. But he was damaging to America. and he wasn't funny on top of everything else. So on top of this is these guys are disappearing, or at least, I mean, PBS and NPR won't disappear. We don't have to pay for them anymore. And Colbert will disappear, but not soon enough. More importantly, formerly canceled comedian Shane Gillis was on the ESPYs, the sports awards, and he was killing it. And remember, this is a guy who was too hot to handle for Saturday Night Live, and now he's just letting himself go.
When Caitlin Clark retires from the WNBA, she's going to work at a Waffle House so she can continue doing what she loves most, fist fighting black women.
I love this. And I am totally in favor of racial humor, by the way. I think it brings things out into the open. There's always hostility between the races, always, everywhere. There's always some kind of tension between races and cultures. And again, we should be able to laugh at each other. I will tell you something. I love the Daily Wire, and I've said a lot of nice things about the Daily Wire, that all of which I believe. But I will tell you the worst moment I had at the Daily Wire was when they asked me to give them a book that I had written or was writing called The Lefty's Dictionary, which was a series of satires about the left. And they published it, and they put out a beautiful edition of it. And then someone in the organization realized that N was A is for this, B is for that, and N was for N-word. And they panicked. The Daily Wire panicked. And it's one of the few times I've seen them do that. They got very frightened. They went nuts. They were talking about buying back copies of the books that had sold, and they shut it down. They basically unpublished it. And now it's actually worth more. I think you can get it for about $30 or something, $40 on Amazon, but hard to find copies of it. And it's still it's funny. And my argument was this. My argument was, I like living in a multi-ethnic country. I like everybody. I like everybody just the same, really. I could not care less what race people are. And so when I make jokes about people, there's no evil in it, and I'm happy to defend it. I'm happy to take the heat, but they couldn't brass it out because that's how divided the left had made us over race. So,
all right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there and move on. Let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Andrew Klavan. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. He always has interesting stuff. I really like his monologues, but he always has some really interesting stuff, and that's why I like to share him. I do normally share his videos on Sunday evening. But let's get back here to the description box and move on with Mark Levin. Speaker Johnson, the Republican Party is the party of fiscal responsibility. Well, not yet, but I think they're working on it. Let's see what they have to say here.
There's a lot in this big, beautiful bill that people may not quite understand, that involves security at our border and immigration and so forth, that involves our economy, tax cuts for average working American and others as well, thankfully. All kinds of important policies in there that the American people have been craving for decades. You've delivered, Thune's delivered, the president has delivered, but you say more to come. What kind of things do you have in mind?
Well, listen, let's stop there just for a moment. You're right. We called it the One Big Beautiful Bill for a reason. It's arguably the most consequential piece of legislation that Congress has passed in generations. Some would argue maybe in the top 2 or 3 in the history of the U.S. Congress. So it's big. There's a lot in it, and every American is going to benefit from that because we geared it for hardworking Americans. Middle and lower class families will see the greatest benefit out of the tax cuts. Every American will enjoy the benefit of historic savings. We saved nearly $1.6 trillion in taxpayer funding there. We cut out fraud, waste, and abuse. We're restoring to American energy dominance. We sealed the border once and for all, and on and on and on. So we'll begin to see the effects of that almost immediately, and everyone will be in the big stride of that as we go into the midterm election in 26. But as I said, we're just getting started. There are multiple steps to what we're doing here. We're the party, the Republican Party is the party of fiscal responsibility. And we are demonstrating that day after day because of the president's leadership in the White House and what we're doing here. We just passed on Friday, of course, on Thursday night, late Thursday night, early Friday morning after midnight, we passed the first rescission package. And that is the White House, the executive branch, sending to Congress a request to claw back funding that was identified to be wasted with fraud, waste, and abuse. And of course, that was in the areas of the State Department with the abuses under the Biden administration of USAID, and of course, with the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, with wildly politically biased coverage from NPR and PBS that taxpayers were underwriting. No more. we've taken care of that problem, and that's just one of the many things that we've been wanting to do for a long time. So we'll have additional rescissions packages coming forward. We'll continue to claw back funding, restore fiscal sanity here. We're appropriating now at lower levels, lower funding levels. And then, Mark, we're planning already Reconciliation Bill 2.0. We're going to have another reconciliation bill in the fall of this year, for the next fiscal year that attaches to that. And then I hope and I plan a third one in the spring for the following fiscal year. So you're going to see a lot of activity here, Republican Party flexing its muscle and doing great good for the American people. We're making history here every day.
All right. Great stuff here. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from the Mark Levin show. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. Now, you'll hear a lot of Democrats say the last time the budget was balanced was when Bill Clinton was in office. Yes, that's true, but he did have a Republican Congress at that time. Newt Gingrich, I watched it on C-SPAN. I watched them go through, and what normally happens in these departments of government is they automatically get, back then, I'm not sure exactly what it is now, a 15% increase in their budget. All the departments get a 15% increase in their budget. Well, Newt Gingrich, the Republicans in charge, backed that out. Nobody got an increase the next year. And of course, the mainstream media was going nuts how the Republicans were going to kill everybody and all the children were going to starve because they couldn't eat at school, and all the parents, all the grandparents were going to die because they couldn't afford their Medicare or their food or whatever. No, he didn't cut anything. He just stopped the 15% increase in their budget over last year. Newt Gingrich, Republican in the House of Representatives, okay? They put the bill together and Clinton signed it. So it wasn't Clinton that balanced the budget. It was the Republican House of Representatives led by Newt Gingrich, okay? So then the mainstream media went after his mother, Newt Gingrich's mother, and got her to say something bad about Hillary Clinton that kind of screwed him up as far as in the future, because you know how the mainstream media is, you know, their wrap-up smear, they will destroy anyone they can that stands in the way of the Democrat Party destroying the United States, okay? That's their plan. All right, let's get back here. And speaking of the Democrat Party, I have something here that I want to share with you. I've shared this before, but this is information from back in the 1940s with Bob Hope. So listen to what Democrats...
You live here? Yes. Well, maybe you know what a zombie is. When a person dies and is buried, it seems there are certain voodoo priests who have the power to bring him back to life.
Oh, horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring. You mean like Democrats?
There you have it. All right, you mean like Democrats? Okay, so, you know, back in the 1940s, even Bob Hope knew that the Democrats were just blindless and sheep, more or less. All right, with that being said, let's move on here to Doug in Exile. He just got busted. Let's see what Doug has to say.
Tulsi Gabbard has flushed out a brand new whistleblower against Barack Obama, who is the bag man.
President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called the National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first
This
week
is
of December.
9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won.
Working above Hillary Clinton to use Brennan to get Trump. Super important, huge breakthrough stuff. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. We've been saying it's been Barack Obama, the bag man, all along. Hillary didn't have the power to spy on Trump. That had to be presidential guy above the FBI to direct it. And that's why all fingers point to Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton's just following orders. She wanted to win an election. It's true. But Barack is the one that had to do it. And now we have actual evidence coming from this article. Here's the quick overview of it. Bombshell Tulsi Gabbard allegedly has revealed that Obama may have forced the IC to make up intelligence about Russia and Trump. Tick-tock. This is the scoop. New whistleblower documents show Barack Obama requested a new IC assessment to blame Russia for the 2016 election interference. That's Barack. This is all going to go to the same article. This is going to get more and more detailed as we go. Here's Greg Price. Wow. DNI Gabbard just declassified a draft presidential daily brief from December 8th, 2016, in which Obama's intel community addressed that Russia did not impact the 2016 election.
Essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people, who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump.
My number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
That means Barack Obama knew that as early as 2016 that Russia did not influence the election. So why did Brennan and Hillary go forward with the Russia investigation, including making up and planting evidence against Trump? Here's the article over at Fox. Now we're going to get into even more detail as we go. Okay. Barack admin manufactured. Now that is the big one. That's the scandal. They manufactured intelligence to create the 2016 Russian election interference narrative documents now show. So now we're getting a little more color on this documents, and it all looks bad for Barry, the pseudo-intellectual who claims to be for democracies on the ballot. And he really was undermining democracy the whole time. There was a treasonous conspiracy in 2016 committed by officials at the highest level of our government, unquote, Gabbard said. That is a conspiracy by Barack Obama. Exclusive. The Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence, you can put that in quote, to create the narrative that Russia was attempting to influence the 2016 presidential election, despite information from the intelligence community stating otherwise. Fox News Digital has learned Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard Friday declassified documents revealing overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after President Donald Trump won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton, then President Barack Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for what would be a years-long Trump-Russia collusion probe.
Fox News alert, we just got a peek inside Obama's black book, and it turns out Barack knew the Russia hoax was a hoax all along, but pushed it anyway to sabotage the Trump presidency. DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassifying pages and pages of documents, showing Obama's intel guys briefed him just weeks after the 2016 election that the Russians didn't actually sway the election. Quote, we assessed that Russian and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. election results. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes. But Obama just couldn't accept that. So he and his staff instructed intel agencies to cook up new reports to support Russia collusion.
So after Trump won in 2016, Obama, on his way out before Trump actually took office, set up all of the intelligence agencies to start creating evidence against Trump to gum up his administration for 4 years. Documents revealed that in the months leading to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community consistently assessed that Russia was, quote, probably not trying to influence the election by using cyber means. One instance was on December 7th of 2016. This is after Trump won, but before he was inaugurated into office. Weeks after the election, then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper's talking point stated, quote, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome, unquote. Fox, remember, this was all a Democrat thing back then. It was Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar that said that these machines were not safe. All those quotes came from Democrats. And then when Republicans did it, then they launched a giant billion-dollar lawsuit against them and Mike Lindell and all those. But it was all started by Democrats. Fox News Digital obtained a declassified copy of the Presidential Daily Brief, which was prepared by the Department of Homeland Security with reporting from the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, the FBI, National Security Agency, Department of Homeland Security, State Department, and open sources for Obama, dated December 8th, 2016. After Trump won, before he took office, these are all the deep state spooks reporting to Obama for duty. Reporting for duty, Barack. What will you have us do? And Barack's going to go, though we know that there was no Russian collusion, we're setting this thing up. This is all we got to go on. Quote, we assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure, the Presidential Daily Brief stated. Russian government affiliated actors most likely compromised an Illinois voter registration database and unsuccessfully attempted the same in other states, he said. There's Barack with, is that Susan Rice? And is that Comey? There's big giant Comey. But the brief stated that it was highly unlikely the effort would have resulted in altering any state's official vote result. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes, it stated. So all of this, remember, Hillary's been yakking about this for years also. Hillary's the one that keeps going. We know Russia colluded, Adam Schiff too, and yet these are official documents that they ignored or buried or covered up because these had to be pulled out by Tulsi Gabbard through a massive declassification is the only way we learned about this. That's the big breakthrough of this news thing, guys, is we now have evidence that they know, Brennan knows he was lying. Clapper in this picture here, that's Clapper on the right, Brennan on the left, they knew they were lying. The brief noted the Office of the Director of National Intelligence assessed that any Russian activities probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates, if anything. We don't know their agenda, if anything. For all we know, they wanted to get Hillary elected. The brief stated that cyber criminals, quote, tried to steal data and to interrupt election processes by targeting election infrastructure, but these actions did not achieve a notable disruptive effect. Fox News Digital obtained declassification, but redacted communications from the FBI on the Presidential Daily Brief, stating that it, quote, should not go forward until the FBI, unquote, had shared its concerns. Those communications revealed that the FBI drafted a dissent to the original Presidential Daily Brief. The communications revealed that the brief was expected to be published December 9th, 2016, the following day, but later communications revealed that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, based on some new guidance, decided to push back publication of the presidential brief. These are the actual documents that were released and declassified. And you can see there's some redacted stuff in there too. Just to give, wow, look at all the redactions on this page. There you go. Good luck getting through all this stuff. whose names are on this thing? Look at that. I think it just says Hillary Clinton over and over again, and they're all redacted. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, all redacted. Wow, that is a lot of black redactions. Okay. Quote, it will not run tomorrow and is not likely to run until next week. We're talking about when they can safely reveal this report, wrote the deputy director of the president's daily brief, on office director of national intelligence, whose name is redacted. The following day, December 16th, a meeting convened in the White House Situation Room with the subject line stating the summary of conclusions for PC meeting on a sensitive topic is, and it was redacted. The meeting included top officials in the National Security Council, Clapper, then CIA Director John Brennan, the National Security Advisor Susan Rice, then Secretary of State John Kerry, the human oak tree, then Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, among others, to discuss Russia, which now this person right here, Susan Rice, knew was false. The declassified meeting record obtained by Fox News Digital revealed that participants agreed to recommend sanctioning of certain members of the Russian military intelligence and foreign intelligence chains of command responsible for cyber operations as a response to cyber activity that attempted to influence or interfere with U.S. elections, if such activity meets the requirements from an executive order that demanded and blocking of property belonging to people engaged in cyber activity. This whole thing is false, guys. They secretly planned to launch a giant Get Trump campaign because they knew this stuff was false. And remember, if they're saying that now Russia is this huge threat influencing our elections, remember, it was Barack Obama when he was debating Mitt Romney, when Mitt Romney said Russia was the greatest existential threat against America. And Barack Obama said the 80s called and want their foreign policy back. Barack Obama was claiming that Romney was creating this big Russian boogeyman just like they did in the 80s during the Cold War. And now here's Barack Obama, knowing Russia did not significantly affect the election, goes into a private room with Brennan and Clapper, and now they roll out this giant Russia long 4-year hoax against Trump, inventing Russia as the boogeyman. And now we have proof. Barack Obama, of course, gets some level of presidential immunity, but I say they should throw the book at him anyways, do a massive revelation of what this government did. This was probably the second biggest scandal in American history, trying to invent evidence against Trump, and Barack Obama is one that pulled the trigger to spy on him. Never forget that. President went after a new political opponent running for another party and went and conducted spying on him. This is worse than what Nixon did in Watergate. What Barack Obama did is a worse Watergate. No Democrats cared. None of the press cares. Bob Woodward doesn't care. No one's doing their big expose because they don't care. They just want power. I'm done.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Doug. Now, this next video that I'm going to share with you, first let me go ahead and give kudos out here to Doug, give his credit where credit is due. Doug in Exile, I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's get back here. And this next video that I have here is from the Why Files. Now, I follow this channel for quite a few years, and they've got some good stuff. And normally it's stuff where, you know, it's one of those conspiracy theories things, and he goes into it and explains it all. And if he finds that he gives the truth, okay? If he finds that something's just not right about it, he'll say, you know, but this can be debunked by this, and this. Okay, he's going to talk about the real CIA. 693 pages of secret crimes. Okay, now, I'm believing the CIA is heavily involved in everything. All the bullshit that goes on in Washington, D.C. and around the world and throughout our country. I believe the CIA is heavily involved. They want us in chaos. They want us to be dependent on the government. And the CIA, oh, well, we'll take care of it. Yeah, they'll fix this while they're screwing up 7 things over here. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a listen to this. I hope the audio comes through. And I apologize for the audio on the previous video. That was actually that video's audio that was kind of quirky there at times. That wasn't from me or Rumble. All right, so let's get into the WAV files here.
On June 25, 2007, the CIA quietly released 693 pages of their darkest secrets to the website. No announcement, no press conference, just a document dump of operations so illegal they've been hidden since 1973. The CIA called this collection their family jewels. Assassination plots, mind control experiments, journalists on CIA payroll, surveillance of hundreds of thousands of Americans who'd committed no crimes. These weren't conspiracy theories. These were real. Each page of the family jewels revealed operations approved at the highest levels, operations that violated every law meant to constrain the CIA. And taken together, they revealed something darker than isolated crimes. They told a story. The story of the family jewels is the story of the real CIA. The story of the family jewels didn't start in 2007. It starts in 1973 when the walls started closing in on the CIA. On May 9th, James Schlesinger had been CIA director for only 3 months, and his timing couldn't have been worse. The Watergate break-in scandal was spreading. The 5 intruders were all connected to the CIA, some as officers, some as assets. The planners of the break-in were E. Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy. Hunt was former CIA. Liddy was former FBI with a background in intelligence. Congress and the press were asking questions the CIA didn't want to answer. But the director had a problem. He didn't know what his own agency had done. He knew there were secrets buried that could destroy them if ever discovered, so he issued an order to every department head. Report any activity that may have violated the CIA's charter. This was supposed to be a routine investigation, a way to get the agency out of the headlines. The rumors were bad. He had no idea that the truth was much worse. One department admitted to opening mail between the US and Soviet Union. 28 million letters over 20 years were illegally opened and scanned. The Office of Security confessed to wiretapping American journalists who'd been asking too many questions. Every department submitted reports. Every report was worse than the last. There were disclosures of surveillance operations, not against foreign spies, against Americans. Anyone who questioned authority was a CIA target. Some programs were classified secret, then top secret. But operations classified eyes only were so secret, details couldn't be written down. They were labeled sensitive operation, details available orally only. Others had code names that revealed nothing. MH Chaos, HT Lingual, MK Often. Week after week, the secrets poured in. Programs everyone thought were conspiracy theories. The binder was getting heavy. By summer, it was several inches thick, almost 700 pages of CIA misconduct. But these weren't occasional mistakes. They were approved, funded, and executed. In other words, decades of illegal CIA operation was official policy. This was a report that could destroy the agency. And then it leaked. Not from a spy, but from a journalist who believed in transparency. But he had no idea he was about to expose the biggest intelligence scandal in American history. And as soon as the CIA caught wind of his investigation, he became the agency's biggest threat and newest target. The journalist who would expose it all was no stranger to government lies. Seymour Hersh had already won a Pulitzer Prize in 1969 for exposing the My Lai massacre, where American soldiers slaughtered hundreds of Vietnamese civilians. The Pentagon tried to bury that story. Hersh dragged it into the light. By December 1974, Hersh was at the New York Times. And he'd been hearing whispers from former CIA officers about domestic surveillance programs that weren't supposed to exist. The CIA's charter was crystal clear: no domestic operations, no spying on American citizens, period. But his sources were telling him the opposite, that the CIA was running a massive operation against Americans. On December 22nd, 1974, the Times ran Hersh's story on the front page. The article detailed a massive intelligence operation with files on 10,000 American citizens, not foreign agents, not terrorists, Americans, anti-war activists, civil rights leaders, journalists, even members of Congress. The backlash was instant. The public was outraged, and the press wouldn't let it go. The next morning, the Department of Justice announced an investigation, and CIA Director William Colby was summoned to Air Force One to brief President Ford personally. President Ford's solution was damage control the narrative. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller would lead a commission to investigate. Quick, clean, controlled. The scandal would finally be contained. But it backfired. The commission not only confirmed everything Hersh reported, they found more. The CIA had conducted break-ins against American citizens, bugged their homes, opened their mail, tapped their phones, even tested biological weapons on Americans without their knowledge. The agency wasn't just violating its charter, it was breaking the law, and every target was an American citizen on American soil.
The agency does monitor foreign communications.
How do you define foreign communications?
I think it is communications that go abroad or are abroad. I think
does it involve a United States citizen at one end?
On some occasions, that cannot be separated from the traffic that is being monitored, I believe.
These operations weren't the work of rogue agents. They were approved at the highest levels by CIA directors, by the Pentagon, by former presidents, and vice presidents.
It turned out that most of these abuses really could be trailed back to the president and the NSC. They initiated them, they knew about them. In some cases, for example, assassinations, Eisenhower was the first to suggest it. And so this was really not a rogue rogue agency. This was, in some respects, a rogue presidency.
Congress knew they needed their own investigation. Senator Frank Church was chosen to lead what would become the most extensive investigation of intelligence activities ever conducted. And the Church Committee had something the President's Commission didn't: subpoena power, the power to force anyone involved to testify. No hiding behind national security. No, I can neither confirm nor deny. Tell the truth or go to jail. For the first time in history, the CIA would have to reveal their covert operations under oath and on the record. And what they revealed shocked everyone, because any American could be a target. And as the investigation continued, that list of American targets kept getting longer and longer. The Church Committee's first major discovery was Operation Chaos, known by its cryptonym MH Chaos. Started in 1967 under President Johnson and expanded under Nixon. The mission was simple: find foreign influence in the anti-war movement, prove that Moscow or Beijing were behind the protests. They never found any foreign influence, not one case. The anti-war movement was made up of Americans, but they kept looking for communists, and the program kept growing. By 1973, Chaos had indexed 300,000 Americans in its computer system. Not suspected spies, not foreign agents, Americans exercising their First Amendment rights. College students, clergy, professors, journalists. Anyone who questioned the Vietnam War was a potential target. Richard Ober ran the operation. He worked under James Jesus Angleton, the CIA's counterintelligence chief. Angleton had built his own empire within the CIA. He was brilliant, paranoid, and convinced that enemies were everywhere. The CIA was designed to protect America from foreign threats, but Angleton had turned those weapons inward against his own citizens. They used a sophisticated computer system to track everyone. It cross-referenced every name mentioned in every intelligence report. Feed in one name, get connections to dozens more, like a spider web expanding outward. 7,200 Americans had dedicated files. Their mail was opened and their phones were tapped without a warrant. Their trash was searched. CIA agents infiltrated their organizations, attended their meetings, recorded their conversations.
The documents describe domestic spying, opening of private mail, and the investigation of journalists. Agents watched former Washington Post reporter Michael Gettler for 3 months in 1971.
They were watching who I was talking to. They took pictures of who I was having lunch with. They actually took pictures through the picture window of our home.
CIA employees have nicknamed the documents the family jewels.
Over 1,000 organizations were monitored, not just protest groups. The CIA watched Jewish organizations. The Israeli embassy was watched. When asked why, one CIA officer said they were looking for radical Jewish elements. American Jews practicing their faith, supporting Israel, were watched by their own government. And chaos wasn't alone. Merrimack infiltrated protest groups around Washington, D.C. Operation Resistance collected information on draft resistors. HT Lingual, an earlier operation, was still running, and that was opening and photographing mail between Americans and foreign countries. The CIA didn't just target protesters, it also watched members of Congress. Bella Abzug from New York, Patsy Mink from Hawaii. A total of 14 members of Congress were on the CIA's watch list for being vocal critics of the Vietnam War. The violations were systemic. Every person who spoke out against the war, every group that organized a protest, every publication that questioned policy, all of them ended up in the computer system. Names, addresses, associates, activities, everything cataloged and cross-referenced. They turned spying into a science. But sometimes watching isn't enough. Sometimes they needed boots on the ground. Sometimes direct action had to be used against American citizens. The CIA needed an agency willing to get their hands dirty, and they found the perfect partner, the FBI.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I'm like 15 minutes into this 38-minute video. And he gets into some heavy stuff, okay? And I don't know if you noticed there, this fish, hecklefish, a lot of times he'll have conversations. I've watched the Y-Files for a lot. And normally hecklefish jumps in and has something sarcastic to say. Hecklefish usually says some of the things that he wouldn't be able to say on YouTube. So, kind of things like the vaccine or something not being safe and effective. Hecklefish will mention that. You won't hear that from him, but you'll hear Hecklefish jump in there and say that. And for some reason, he's able to get by with that. But at any rate, this video does come from the Y-Files. I am subscribed to the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, great information. And, folks, the link to this video and all the videos that I've shared with you tonight are right down here in the description box. The link to their channel, the link to the video. So I urge you, if you're interested in hearing more of it, just open up the description box, slide down here, and watch that information. Okay, all this information that I'm sharing does come directly from the producer. I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this out, but I do like to put together a package to present to you so that you can get some, truth rather than lies and propaganda from the mainstream media. And the CIA has been involved in covert stuff forever, ever since they've been established. Okay, all right, let's get these live chats here, copy them into a comment down here so that they will be a permanent part of this video. All right, and let me do a quick refresh here. A permanent part of this. All right, so I've had 242 people look at this video so far, which is pretty good. I got 44 people watching right now, and I've got 6 thumbs up. So if I could get 38 of you to slide down here and give me a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, over here, coming back over here to Murtech.com. These videos that I shared with you tonight are videos that I post on Murtech.com. where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Here's a video from Andrew Klavan that I shared with you. Here's the video from Mark Levin and Johnson that I shared with you. Here's Doug In Exile's video. And down here is the Y-Files, the video that I shared with you there. But as I said, I have over 55 videos here at Mertech.com. The link to Mertech.com is in the description box. It's a free site. I don't ask for your name. I don't ask for your email address. I don't drop cookies on your computer or having ads pop up in your face. Ever since the 2020 election, this is my way of helping people understand how we're being screwed over by the Democrat Party and the mainstream media. So I'm trying to counteract that. All right? I will share some more information with you. My marathon daily news wrap-up will start about 9:30, where I have, I believe at this time, over 50 videos in my playlist of information that you're not going to get from MSNBC or CNN or some of the other lying propaganda networks. So go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee, a donut, soft drink, sandwich, and meet me back here at 9:30, and we'll get our marathon daily news wrap-up started for you. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for spending your time with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.